Hey y'all. Well, it's time for some mysteries and unexplained. Um, if you've been following the series, you'll know that we left off. I said we were going to do inexplicable crimes and assaults, and appearances and disappearances. So we'll pick up right there. Got a pipe packed. This is a little Missouri Meerschaum, and this is the Diplomat Apple, or Apple Diplomat. Nice little pipe. And inside, Amphora Full Aroma. It's a Danish aromatic. Let's fire this up. All right. All right. That's good. Inexplicable crimes. Notwithstanding the experience, sophisticated equipment, and networks of communication shared by police departments all across the country, there are still some crimes in which the evidence is so puzzling as to defy logical solution. Sherlock Holmes himself would have had trouble with such examples as the following. So this one's called A Heavy Question. At the end of a day's work in 1974, workers for the Dowling Construction Company of Indianapolis left a 5-ton steel wrecking ball hanging from a crane 200 feet above the ground. When they came back the next morning, the ball was gone. Police and all concerned were baffled, and the ball was never found. That's from a telephone interview with Lauren Dowling, Indianapolis, Indiana. Now that's puzzling. Okay. So this is still in Inexplicable Crimes and Assaults, but this section is called cattle mutilation. And this is something that I've always thought was fascinating and kind of scary, and just really want to know the answer to this. There's no question that numbers of cattle, and in a few instances other livestock, were found mutilated in the 1970s on the vast reaches of the Western Plains. There is, however, a hotly debated controversy as to whether this was the work of natural predators or of agencies unknown. A few cases' histories are offered here. So the first one I'm going to read is called A Square Cut. On October 21st, 1975, a 1,500-pound bison was found dead in its enclosure at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in Colorado. One ear and the udder had been cut off, the genitals were mutilated, and a 24-inch square section of hide had been removed. The only tracks found around the carcass were those of the other animals in the pen, which maintained altogether some 50 bison and 10 American elk. There is no doubt, said Zoo Director Dan Davis, the animal was mutilated with some sort of sharp instrument handled by man. An autopsy was performed on the bison by Dr. Rodney C. Walker, the zoo's veterinarian. His examination ruled out an attack by predators and failed to reveal any signs of a fatal disease. It did, however, uncover one curious fact. The blood of the dead animal was abnormally thin, as though an anticoagulant had been administered. It was very, very strange, Dr. Walker said. There was an excessive amount of sera sanguinis blood-tinged fluid in the abdominal and thoracic cavities, and the fluid had seeped into the body tissue and even into the eyeballs. The corpse was also examined by the El Paso County coroner, Dr. Raul W. Urich. He found that the 2-foot square section of hide had been removed without damage to the underlying tissue. The cutting was done neatly, cleanly, obviously with a very sharp instrument. The dissection was of the type that would eliminate any type of predator. It was better than I could do if I were trying. It was really an expert job. Dr. Urich further noted that the body was found not more than 24 hours after the animal's death. The night had been cold, retarding decomposition, and the carcass was therefore in good condition when the autopsy was performed. That's from Cattle Mutilation, The Unthinkable Truth, Frederick W. Smith, pages 11 and 12. This tobacco tastes like fruit. So this is called aerial delivery. Although no direct evidence was found to link helicopter sightings with cattle mutilation, many ranchers were convinced that aircraft of some kind must be involved because the dead cattle often seemed to have fallen from a height. In August 1975, Sheriff W.L. McDonald of Washington County, Colorado, told reporters that he had examined a mutilated heifer that appeared to have been dropped from a height of several feet into a pond. In Park County, Colorado, 2 mutilated cows were discovered in a pasture, the gate to which was padlocked. According to Sheriff Norman Howie, the cows couldn't possibly have been where they were found unless they had been dropped from aircraft. There were no strange tracks near the bodies. That's from the books The Terror and Cattle Mutilation, The Unthinkable Truth. Michael D. Albers, page 59, and Frederick W. Smith, page 16. This is called A Preference for Ears. Something had been eating the ears off of living hogs, reported the Jasper County News in Mississippi in January 1977. One victim, belonging to Joseph Dixon of the Nazarene community, had had his ears sheared off so cleanly that the job might have been done with scissors. The next night, another hog was attacked in a pen, and a third hog the night following. On the third night, Dixon saw an animal in the pen. It was bigger than the biggest German shepherd, he said, and could jump further than any dog in the world. A week later, Calvin Martin, a neighbor, found that the ears of one of his sows had been pulled out by the roots. That's from the Jasper County News, January 12th and 19th, 1977. This is called Double Strike. This will be the last one on cattle mutilations. At Whiteface, Texas, in an area where UFOs had been reported for weeks in early 1975, police examined a mutilated heifer that rancher Darwood Marshall had found lying within a 30-foot circle of flattened vegetation on March 10th. The animal's neck was so twisted so that its head pointed grotesquely to the sky, its tongue and external organs were missing, and its navel appeared to have been cored out. No traces of blood were found on the ground near the calf. A few days earlier, Marshall had discovered a mutilated steer lying in a circle of scorched young wheat. Sheriff Richards tested the site for radiation, got a positive reading, and enlisted the help of experts at Reese Air Force Base. The test revealed that radiation at the site was 1/2 of 1% higher than normal, not a dramatic or dangerous difference. But why was there a difference at all? Sheriff Richards wanted to know, and just what had scorched that circle of wheat? That was from The Terror, Michael D. Albers, pages 55 and 56. So now we're moving into a section that's called the Spear of Thought. In many primitive societies, there is the belief that, by some means of accepted ritual, a hex or curse can be leveled against an individual. And unless the curse is ritually canceled, the dire predictions of pain, injury, or death will be fulfilled. Have a little swig here. Yeah, this is a interesting section. This is called the Relentless Cordache. In 1953, an Aborigine named Kinjika was flown from his native Arnhem Land in Australia's Northern Territory to a hospital in Darwin, the territorial capital. He had not been injured or poisoned, was not suffering from any known disease, but he was dying. Kinjika survived for 4 days in great pain after entering the hospital, and on the 5th day he died, the victim of bone pointing, a method of execution or murder that leaves no trace and almost never fails. The dead man had been a member of the Malay tribe and had broken one of its laws governing incestuous relationships. Following this, he had been summoned before a tribal council, had refused to attend, and in his absence had been sentenced to death. Kinjika then fled his homeland, and the tribal executioner, the Mulungua, made and ritually loaded the killing bone, or kundela. The bone used may be human, kangaroo, or emu, or it may be fashioned from wood. The design varies from tribe to tribe. Most are from 6 to 9 inches long, pointed at one end and shaved to a smooth roundness. At the other end, a braid of hair is attached through a hole or with a resinous gum derived from the spinifex bush. To be effective, the kundela must be charged with powerful psychic energy in a complex ritual that must be performed faultlessly. The process is kept secret from women and all who are not members of the tribe. If the condemned man has fled from his village, the loaded bone is given to the Cordache, the tribe's ritual killers. The Cordache take their name from the special slippers they wear when hunting a condemned man. These are woven from cockatoo feathers and human hair and leave virtually no footprints. The hunters clothe themselves with kangaroo hair, which they stick to their skin after first coating themselves with human blood, and they don masks of emu feathers. Usually operating in 2s or 3s, they are relentless and will pursue their quarry for years if necessary. When the hunters finally corner their man, they approach to within 15 feet or so, and one Cordache, or hitman, dropping to his knee, holds the bone in his fist and points it like a pistol. At this instant, the condemned man is said to be frozen with fear. The Cordache thrusts the bone toward him and utters a brief, piercing chant. He and his fellow hunters then withdraw, leaving the pointed man to his own devices. When they return to their village, the kundela is ceremonially burned. The condemned man may live for several more days or weeks, but convinced of the kundela's fatal power, his relatives and members of any other tribe he may meet who will certainly have heard that he has been pointed, treat him as though he were already dead. The ritual loading of the candela creates a psychic counterpart of the bone, a spear of thought, as it has been described, which pierces the condemned man when the bone is pointed at him. Once he has been wounded, the victim's death is certain, as though an actual spear had been thrust through him. That's from Unsolved, The World of the Unknown, John Goodwin, pages 163 through 76. And Living Magic, Ronald Rose, pages 30 and 36. So there's a picture here of these killing bones. Check that out. This tobacco is it's a pouch tobacco, but this is only the second bowl of this I've had. I did enjoy the first bowl really a lot. The first bowl I ever smoked this, I thought it was good. I jarred it up, and it's been in a jar since. This is the second bowl. Fruit. Tastes like fruit, like sort of like a fruit medley, kind of. Okay. All right. So in each section, I'm skipping over a lot of good stuff. I'm just trying to keep us moving along here, but there are other great tidbits in here. But we're gonna go ahead and move on, and we're moving on to section Zombies, The Walking Dead. And a lot of times these days when we think of zombies, we of course think about the zombies we've seen on probably the most recent films, the most recent television movies. You think about monsters, and even some of the most recent video games. Some of the zombies on these games, they're just like bloody, sharp tooth, almost have claws, not even human, looking monsters. Is kind of the zombie that's in our minds these days. But this book right here kind of talks about a different kind of zombie, more realistic kind of zombie. There are those in Haiti who believe that voodoo priests, Hungans, have the power to resurrect the dead. The Hungan steals the soul from the corpse, which he then reanimates as a mindless automaton, a zombie. This poor creature will, if certain precautions are taken, do his master's bidding ever after. So, this is called the Cotton Pickers. On a field trip in Haiti in 1930, French anthropologist Georges de Rouquet had an opportunity most unusual for a Caucasian to observe 4 zombies, although he was not allowed to touch them. De Rouquet, who had the advantage of being fluent in Creole and was accompanied by a knowledgeable Haitian guide, recorded the experience in his journal. Toward the evening, we encountered a group of 4 male figures coming from the nearby cotton field where they had been toiling. I was struck by their peculiar shambling gait, most unlike the lithe walk of other natives. The overseer would them stop their progress, enabling me to observe them closely for some minutes. They were clothed in rags made from sacking. Their arms hung down by their sides, dangling in a curiously lifeless fashion. Their faces and hands appeared devoid of flesh, the skin adhering to the bones like wrinkled brown parchment. I also noticed that they did not sweat, although they had been working and the sun was still very hot. I was unable to judge even their approximate ages. They may have been young men or quite elderly. The most arresting feature about them was their gaze. They all stared straight ahead, their eyes dull and unfocused as if blind. They did not show a spark of awareness of my presence even when I approached them closely. To test the reflexes of one, I made a stabbing gesture toward his eyes with my pointed fingers. He did not blink or shrink back. But when I attempted to touch his hand, the overseer prevented me, saying that this was not permitted. My immediate impression was that these creatures were imbeciles made to work for their keep. Baptiste, however, assured me that they were indeed the zombies, that is, dead persons resurrected by sorcery and employed as unpaid laborers. Derouquet watched as the zombies were locked up in a tiny windowless shed, much smaller and more strongly built than the usual thatched peasant huts, and suggested to Baptiste, his guide, that they should investigate this prison. But Baptiste, who until now had shown a cool detachment, became very frightened and insisted that they depart immediately, telling Derouquet, who was armed, that a gun was often a useless defense in Haiti. That's from Unsolved, The World of the Unknown, John Goodwin, pages 205 and 206 and 216. See, so we'll go one more on zombies. The repeated reports of zombies, people in a this is called Zombies Explained. The repeated reports of zombies, people in a trance-like state working as slaves in the fields of Haiti, gain credence by virtue of a first-hand report by a former victim named Clairvius Narcisse from the village of L'Ester. It says his story was related by the National Enquirer in 1982. Narcisse, who had always been in excellent health, suddenly and inexplicably took sick in 1962. His sister brought him to the Albert Schweitzer Memorial Hospital in Deschambault. I couldn't get enough air in my lungs, Narcisse said. My heart was running out of strength. My stomach was burning. Then I felt myself freeze up. I heard the doctor tell my sister, "I'm sorry, he's dead." I wanted to cry out to tell her that I was alive, but I was unable to move. The doctor examined him, pulled a sheet over his head, and signed a death certificate. Later in the day, friends came to pay their respects, and Narcisse said that although he could see them and hear them, he felt no emotion. At the cemetery, he heard the mourners lament and heard the dirt falling on his coffin. The next thing he remembered was standing next to the grave in a trance-like state. There were two men who refilled the grave, tied a rope around his wrists, and took him to a farm where he became a slave working in the fields with about 100 other unfortunate souls. According to Dr. Lamarck Douillon, director of the Psychiatric Center in Port-au-Prince, the so-called zombies are people who have been drugged by a voodoo sorcerer, pronounced dead, buried, dug up from their graves, and kept drugged during their enslavement as agricultural workers. Narcisse thinks he had been enslaved for about 2 years when one day the overseer evidently failed to administer the dose of drugs that kept the victims in their subservient condition. Some of the zombies regained their faculties, realized the state they were in, and killed the overseer. Released from the effects of the drug, Narcisse soon became his normal self. He did not go back to his native village because he believed that the brother who lived there had made the arrangement to have him drugged by a voodoo sorcerer. But When in January 1980 he heard that his brother had died, he decided to return to Leicester. So, 18 years after he was thought to be dead and buried, Clairvius Narcisse walked back into the lives of friends and relatives who had mourned his passing nearly 2 decades before. All right, well, that takes us to the next section, appearances and disappearances. And I think I'm going to stop there, and we're going to pick up there next time, because there's a lot of good material in this next section, and I just want to get it split up properly. So that's going to do it for Mysteries Unexplained this time. I really appreciate y'all watching. Yeah, this tobacco, it's good. Like I said, it's a pouch tobacco. It tastes like fruit. I'm getting a little bit of grass. That must be the Virginias. I think this tobacco is supposed to have some pretty decent Virginias. I'm getting some grass in there. Grass, fruit. Sort of like almost like a raspberry type fruit. Not bad. Really appreciate y'all watching. See y'all next time.